Let's take this to Victorian Shadow Health Minister Georgie Crozier, who's in Melbourne. Georgie, could he have drawn this out any longer? What a pain for Victorians.
Oh, Chris, it's just been so many months of us being in lockdown, as you've just described in your editorial, and to come out yesterday and the letdown was enormous, the despair and the white-hot anger amongst the community, amongst the business community was palpable, as you described. It was. The text messages and the emails I was receiving from people who were just absolutely livid. And again, you know, what have they been doing for months on end not to get the support in place? And we're being drip-fed again in terms of the opening. Of course, we're relieved. We're so relieved that there are no new cases and no new deaths today. Everybody is relieved with that.
Yeah.
But it's now nearly November. We've been in this restrictive lockdown phase for so long. We've been waiting for this, and we've been drip-fed and strung along for so long by the Premier and his government.
And my fear is, when you look at the reason that he decided to pause yesterday, because it was a cluster in northeast Melbourne, and it was only one cluster made up of about 30 different cases from several families meeting together, and he decided to pause it all. What's the likelihood of Melbourne having to lock down again if all of a sudden there are 5 or 6 different clusters, as New South Wales have had to deal with in 3 weeks' time?
Well, it was just an extraordinary excuse yesterday because we're going to have these outbreaks.
Yeah.
New South Wales are having these outbreaks,
Yep.
and New South Wales is managing it. They're jumping on them because they've got the technology in place, the QR codes that you just mentioned, for heaven's sake. But that's exactly right. So it's just infuriating for people because he was saying we're waiting on those tests to come in. Well, people are getting tested every day. We wait on tests every single day. So for that to be the excuse was just extraordinary. And it demonstrated that there was little faith in the contact tracing methodology and systems that they have in place. Despite all the spin and deflection on that, it still demonstrates that there are concerns about that contact tracing capacity. And we know there have been problems because of the communication breakdowns with the family who was involved in the northern suburbs outbreak and the confusion, the multiple people ringing them, no clear systems in place, just a complete mess again. And of course, all of that community is suffering and the wider community are suffering because the government's inability to do what they should be able to do.
And I know there'll be a great deal of elation from so many people because they seem to have some definite reopening. Maybe it's all about Wednesday being a terrific day and getting out and about. But I can't help but wonder that this extended lockdown, when it could have been opened a lot earlier and those clusters handled, you just wonder what permanent or medium-term damage has been done to jobs, businesses and livelihoods.
Oh, Chris, where do I start with that? I can tell you that there is some severe despair amongst business owners, their family members. There's been some tragedies that have occurred in terms of suicides, the self-harm numbers, the people rocking up to emergency departments that can't get a bed with psychiatric and mental health issues. I mean, these are profound. The numbers of people that are on antipsychotic drugs and antidepressants, all of these issues are the stories that I'm hearing from people on the ground. That's the reality. That is what I'm hearing from people on the ground. And I just think it demonstrates how out of touch Daniel Andrews and his government has been because they have not factored any of this into their decision-making. It's all been through the prism of COVID rather than these broader issues that are having such wide and ongoing impacts. And I think they are going to be lasting for many, many people. And the economic damage, as you describe, you just can't click your fingers and it all pops back into place. This is going to take months, if not years, to recover from, and that is the devastation that the state has seen. And
Georgie, let's not forget, there shouldn't have been a second wave if they'd have done the right thing, followed the course as set down by the National Cabinet. It wouldn't have happened.
Exactly, Chris. And I was asked that question today. What would you have done differently? Well, for one thing, you wouldn't have refused the offer of ADF to assist in the hotel quarantining, all the contact tracing that was offered to Victoria way back in March. and early April. I mean, these are the decisions the government has to wear. We are all wearing the impacts of this horrendous devastation that's occurred because of the failures and the incompetence and mismanagement by Daniel Andrews and his government. And he cannot escape from that. And that hotel quarantine inquiry, which is completely farcical, if they do not call all of those witnesses back to get to the bottom of some of those very basic questions.
Yeah, you and I have both a great fear about what will be determined from that Board of Inquiry. Hopefully we're both wrong. Georgie Crozier, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Chris.
Good on you. Georgie Crozier, the opposition spokesperson on health.